Thank you so much for joining us today. This video is going to cover the global settings in the Looperboard. So let's dive right in. You can access the global settings by tapping on the navigation menu and going to Global Settings. On the left column, you'll see you have General, Footswitch Control, Audio, USB Audio, MIDI, and Info, which is just the firmware numbers and license info. If you tap on the General option, you have options to change the brightness on the screen using the encoder knob. You can choose what happens after you bounce your loop tracks. You have the options to automatically keep them or delete them. Below that is a Record Dub option. Here you choose if you want the ability to record one track at a time or multiple. At last, we have options for fixed mode recording. You can make it so when you hit record in fixed mode, all tracks start recording at once, or just one at a time. In the next category, you have Footswitch Control. Here you can decide what happens when you hit record, play, dub. You can make it so after you're done recording, it goes into record mode or overdub mode. You can also choose what happens after you hit stop. You can make it just play or automatically go into overdub mode. The last one here, you can decide what happens if you hold this foot switch. You can make it a peel or a clear. In this next section, you choose what happens to the start-stop foot switch when you hold it. You can either make it an undo or a clear. Very flexible. So if you wanted to have your hold function on the bottom to be a peel to just take off the last layer, you can make it do just that and then keep peeling on down the layers. And you can make the top row be your clear. So if you needed to just clear everything from the track, you can. It's really cool to be able to customize it so you have the features that you want or any configuration. The last option in this section is choosing how you want to start-stop foot switch to operate after you hit stop. You can make it just pause or return to the beginning of that track. And this last tab is very unique. You can decide if this foot switch reacts on the press or on the release. So you can literally design how all these foot switches work. Nothing out there does this. Pretty cool. Let's go down to our next tab. This one is audio and pretty self-explanatory. Here you can turn your fan and power on for condenser mics, your ground lift for the XLR outputs in case you're getting some noise, and the option to turn your 1/4 inch outputs to line or amp level. Pretty easy to use. The next tab here is really important if you want to use the Looperboard as a USB audio interface. Because if you do, you want to make sure it's enabled here. Just slide that, you'll see it's connecting to USB audio, and you're ready to go. When you turn this on, your computer will recognize this as a USB audio device, and you'll be able to record through the Looperboard. If you have a Mac, the Looperboard is class compliant and will be detected automatically in your sound preferences menu. If you have a PC, you will want to first download and install our audio driver that is found in our downloads section on our website, and then turn all of this on. Next is where you choose your sample rate. You want to make sure this matches the sample rate in your DAW so you don't get those annoying pops. Here, you can choose your input level and change this with the encoder knob. And last is mode, to choose this for live or DAW purposes. The next tab, you will find MIDI options. First, you have MIDI Clock Receive. This is the turn on if you want the Looperboard to be a slave to a separate MIDI clock, for example, a drum machine. Next, we have MIDI Clock Source. If your source is connected to Looperboard's 5-pin MIDI input, select Looperboard. If you have any MIDI devices connected to Looperboard's USB input, their USB device's name will be shown here and you can select them instead. Here is MIDI Clock Send. Turn this on if you want the Looperboard to send its MIDI clock to a different device. For example, an external delay pedal that has a MIDI input. After this, we have MIDI Clock Offset. Sometimes you may need to do this to sync with a different MIDI device so they sync up properly and perfectly. We made sure to include this in the Looperboard for you. Next is MIDI Clock Destination. If your destination is connected to Looperboard's 5-pin MIDI output, select Looperboard. If you have any MIDI devices connected to Looperboard's USB input, their USB device names will be shown here, and you can select them instead. Here, we have MIDI Through. Turn this on if you want the MIDI messages that are received in the Looperboard's 5-pin MIDI input to be sent directly to the Looperboard's 5-pin MIDI output. This is useful if you have multiple MIDI devices set up in one chain. Next is external MIDI control. Turn this on if you'd like to control the Looperboard's internal functions using an external controller that sends CC or MIDI note messages. In the Looperboard's user guide, you can find a full list of available controls. Last is external MIDI channel. Tap this and turn the encoder to change the channel that the Looperboard should be using when receiving MIDI messages from an external MIDI controller. I hope you found this helpful and have a great day.